We're not just flipping through dusty history books today, we are literally diving to the very bottom of the ocean. You know, humanity has this colossal blind spot when it comes to our past. We think we know exactly how civilization developed, mostly because we rely on what we've already dug up. But what if we've been looking in the completely wrong place this whole time?
Just think about this for a second. How many ancient cities do you think are sitting just 3 meters underwater right now? It sounds like the plot of an Indiana Jones movie, right? We're so used to this idea that archaeology is all about sweating over dusty excavations in deserts or hacking through dense jungles. We constantly look to dry land, but honestly, that stereotype is severely limiting our perspective. I mean, 71% of our planet's surface is covered by water. It's absolutely absurd to try and put together the giant puzzle of human history while stubbornly ignoring almost 3/4 of the globe. The ancient coastlines where life really originated, where humans built their very first settlements 10,000 years ago, those are completely hidden beneath the ocean right now. Okay, let's dive into this, literally. As the saying goes, we look for traces of the past on land, but our origins might be hiding where the sunlight doesn't even reach. Today, we're going to examine 5 totally real, fully documented locations. This isn't some wild conspiracy theory or a search for a mythical Atlantis. We're looking at a strict inventory of structures and entire cities whose existence underwater has already been proven by science. Starting off our sliding scale of certainty with absolute, undeniable facts. Number 1, the discovery of Thonis-Heracleion. For the longest time, the mighty Egyptian city of Thonis-Heracleion was just thought to be a myth. Historians literally read about it and brushed it off. That is, until 2001, when underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio sank just 7 meters down into Abukir Bay and found the entire city. It wasn't a myth at all. It had just gone underwater. His team discovered this massive, bustling port area that's pretty much comparable to Pompeii. We're talking 64 flawlessly preserved wooden ships, hundreds of anchors, and these colossal 5-meter-tall statues of gods, all perfectly frozen in time in the dark under a thick layer of marine mud for 1,500 years. But how does a massive, thriving city just vanish? Well, the culprit is a fascinating geological process called soil liquefaction. Imagine these incredibly heavy stone temples resting for centuries on the water-saturated mud of the Nile Delta. Triggered by a sudden series of earthquakes, that unstable ground literally turned to liquid. Heracleion wasn't just flooded, the massive buildings sank straight down into the soft bottom under their own sheer weight. Everyday city life just stopped in an instant. Moving from Egypt over to Greece, we hit number 2 on our list, Pavlopetri, the absolute oldest submerged city. Pavlopetri is this colossal 30,000 square meter city resting just 3 to 4 meters underwater right off the coast of the Peloponnese. For decades, scientists figured it was about 3,200 years old, placing it squarely in the late Bronze Age. But then, in 2011, modern 3D scanning completely changed the game. It revealed foundations stretching all the way back to the 3rd millennium BC. That technology literally pushed the city's age back by thousands of years, exposing a highly complex urban layout of streets, courtyards, and shrines. Now, unlike the sudden dramatic collapse of Heracleion, Pavlopetri tells a really different story. It was a slow sinking, not a sudden catastrophe. The tectonic shifts that altered the coastline happened very gradually. People didn't flee in a panic. They just slowly and methodically abandoned their homes as the water claimed their streets inch by inch. And actually, that slow sinking is exactly what preserved the thresholds and pavements that ancient Greeks were walking on 5,000 years ago. All right, we're crossing over from undeniable facts straight into the territory of fierce scientific debates. Number 3, the Gulf of Khanbak. Back in 2001, researchers in India used sonar to map out rectangular structures, steps, and walls sitting about 36 meters deep in the Gulf of Khanbak. So the really crucial point here is the dating. They dredged up wood and bone samples alongside these structures that actually carbon dated to roughly 9,500 years ago. If these stone structures are truly that old, built before the Gulf flooded, it completely rewrites the entire timeline of complex societies. To put that in perspective, the earliest known cities in the Indus Valley appeared much later, at around 2500 BC. But you know, science doesn't just accept massive paradigm shifts on faith alone. Skeptics bring up a completely valid argument regarding the burden of proof. They point out that organic material dredged from the ocean floor could have simply been swept in by strong ocean currents. Just because a piece of wood is 9,500 years old doesn't magically prove the age of the stone sitting next to it. So this site isn't a proven anomaly just yet, but it's certainly not a closed case either. It desperately needs independent, systematic study. Jumping over to the westernmost point of Japan, we have number 4, the Yanaguni Monument.
Now, what's really interesting here is how polarizing this site is. In 1987, a dive instructor off the coast of Yanaguni Island stumbled upon this massive monolith with stepped terraces and straight angles, resting up to 25 meters deep. Today, it completely splits the scientific community down the middle. On one side, Professor Masaki Kimura argues that the exact symmetry and carved steps are absolutely clear indicators of a man-made structure from 8,000 years ago. But on the flip side, geologist Robert Schock counters that local layered sandstone naturally erodes under strong water currents in exactly this way, breaking off in flat rectangular blocks. Under the right conditions, nature can masterfully mimic architecture. The debate on this one is still raging.
Okay, let's completely subvert expectations for a second and leave the ocean altogether. Number 5, the Richat structure, better known as the Eye of the Sahara.
Right smack in the middle of the endless Mauritanian sands is a perfect concentric circle, 50 kilometers across. It is so massive that astronauts literally use it as a visual landmark from space. For decades, people have come up with the wildest theories about it, from it being a giant meteorite crater to Plato's lost city of Atlantis. But geology actually gives us a very clear answer here. It's an erosion dome. Millions of years ago, magma swelled the Earth's crust but never actually broke through. Over millions of years, water and wind basically sliced the top off this geological bubble, layer by layer, exposing rings of varying rock hardness. It's just a spectacular masterpiece of nature. But here's the crazy part we often miss when staring at that harsh desert. During the Green Sahara period, roughly 11,000 to 5,000 BC, this place was an incredibly lush, wet world. We're talking deep-flowing rivers, massive thriving lakes, and human settlements. Yet we've barely conducted any systematic archaeological excavations out there. Why? Mostly because it's incredibly hard for us to wrap our heads around looking for traces of advanced early life in the middle of a scorching desert. It's yet another massive blind spot for us. Pulling the lens all the way back now, let's really talk about humanity's blind spot and rethinking human progress. These 5 wildly different locations pretty much shatter this comforting illusion we have that historical progress is just a neat, straightforward line. We systematically underestimate what we haven't actively looked for. And here's the grand finale, the real kicker of this whole realization: 120 meters. That is exactly how much global sea levels have risen since the end of the last ice age, 20,000 years ago. Ancient humans built their entire lives near water because, well, water is life, it's trade, it's food, and ultimately that rapidly rising water took their homes right back, hiding entire eras of our history deep in the abyss. Right now, literally at this very second, there are ancient temples standing in the dark on the seafloor where humans once walked. History is so much wider and way deeper than anything we were taught in school. So I want to challenge you and leave you with this final thought. Out of all 5 sites we looked at today, which one do you believe deserves major prioritized study right now and why? Let that sink in for a bit. We'll catch you in our next explainer.